Sufism and Metaphysics. The meaning of life. Are all of life's hardships worth enduring? The answer depends on what our goal is in living. In fact, understanding the purpose of life is a slow and absorbing process. We sense its mystery while reflecting upon our existence and humanity. Therefore, our concept of life evolves gradually throughout our lives. The purpose of our creation is obvious: to reach our utmost goals of belief, knowledge, and spirituality, to reflect on the universe, humanity, and God, and thus prove our value as human beings. Fulfilling this ideal is possible only through systematic thinking and systematic behavior. Thought will provoke action and thereby start a prosperous cycle. This cycle will produce more complex cycles, which are generated between the spirituality of the heart and the knowledge of the brain, thereby developing ever more complex ideas and producing more ambitious projects. Carrying out such a process calls for strong belief, consciousness, and understanding. People with these characteristics can perceive and analyze the unreflective lifestyles of others. Such people reflect, do what they believe to be right, and then reflect upon their behavior, thereby continually deepening their thoughts and acquiring new ideas. They believe that only those who reflect deeply are productive, and that the pain and suffering they endure make their belief stronger and more acceptable. They live a life of reflection by observing creation every day, sometimes reading it like a book or embroidering their minds with the wisdom they acquire. Believing that the universe was created to be read and understood, they see the purpose of our creation as nothing less than that. On its own, existence is the very bounty that leads us to a prosperous path of bounties. Given this, we should appreciate its value. Since we have been created along with an entire universe of bounties, we must then use these gifts and benefit from them. To reach this goal, we must use our willpower, a voice noticed and attached a value only by the All-Powerful One, and develop our abilities and skills to their fullest extent, thus proving ourselves to be willful beings. Our duty is to reflect upon our place in life, our responsibilities, and our relationship with this vast universe. We should use our inner thoughts to explore the hidden side of creation. As we do so, we will begin to feel a deeper sense of ourselves, see things differently, witness that events are not what they seem, and realize that they are trying to communicate something to us. I believe that this should be the real purpose of life. We are the most important living creations in this universe. In fact, we are more like its soul and essence, from which the rest of the universe develops. Given this, we should reflect upon and observe the universe so that we may realize and fulfill the purpose of our creation. Our duty is to hunt for insights and divine joys in our hearts and souls, for only this way of life can move us beyond the frustrating endeavors of a totally materialistic and painful life. What makes this painful life worth living is the joy we feel while moving along the path and receiving these gifts. Those who walk this path are constantly delighted with various insights. They run enthusiastically toward their final goal like a river flowing to the sea. We do not believe that happiness comes from temporary exterior sources. True happiness comes from within, deepens along with our relationship with God, and turns into an eternal life in heaven. Yes, this is how joyful we are. Our inner world is a realm of divine insights, and our consciousness is a follower of these insights. As we beckon and wait all our lives for the slightest glimpse, our souls sing in utter pleasure. Our hearts are your throne, O King. Welcome to our hearts. Our generation needs guides to teach us how to achieve such belief, thought processes, and happiness. Their guidance will allow our youth to enjoy being young and live upright lives. They will experience existence and non-existence as the same thing once they feel immortality in their souls. They will be able to realize that they can do more than they thought in only a couple of seconds. They will see the afterlife reflected in everything and thereby witness endless life. They will discover that life is worth living. They will witness that all creation rises and sets in their souls, and they will journey through the dimensions of their souls, just as if they were traveling through galaxies, observing infinity within the dimensions that they have reached during this mortal life. Faith. A particular perspective. The word faith, Iman, in Arabic, in the framework of descriptions or from the point of view of science and epistemology, comes from the root el-amnu wal-aman, which means to be safe from fears, to believe, to promise, to trust, to procure the safety of others. It is a word that has the meaning of being safe and sturdy. Believing in God, attesting to His existence, making a confession in the conscience and making a proclamation from the heart. These are some of the meanings that are conferred upon this word from the point of view of linguistic tradition. A person who puts faith in God is called a mu'min. A mu'min is the attester and representative par excellence of all the characteristics that we have seen above. Here we could also talk about the issue of the relationship of deeds and faith, and whether deeds are included within the description of faith, but for the moment we shall not dwell on these topics. Mu'mins are indeed heroes of attestation, proclamation, and representation with their common sense, their ability to see and perceive, their pure intellect that has been enlightened by revelations, their vast and objective comprehension, their strong and encompassing vision, their fastidiousness and sensitivity in matters of responsibility, their determination and resolution against evil, their pursuit of greatness throughout their entire life, and the safeguarding of these high ideals, the ability to keep alive their feelings, awareness, and will, their curiosity that leads to the penetration of the essential meaning of things, and their deep understanding and interpreting phenomena. Their believing and trusting in God and being known among people as people of trust, their attestation to the existence of the Just One and their ability to always stay true to Him, their being known as people who can be trusted with anything and being remembered as people of credibility to whom one can turn at all times, their being remembered as thus and being accepted by all as thus, their being the means for the remembrance of God and also being understood as the people who direct those around them toward Him. They are heroes of attestation, proclamation, and representation in the true sense of the word. Even if every believing person is not a hero of faith and Islam to the same degree, it is clear how significant the feeling of belief is for each individual. For a start, this feeling is of the highest value in the nature of humanity with regards to creation. Even though those who do not believe try to be fulfilled, satisfied, or more precisely, try to find distraction, they feel themselves to be in a vacuum. All time and space is a vacuum for them. Today and tomorrow are all the same. Such people feel this vacuum deep down in their soul. They voice the smothering feelings that turn to senseless ravings, thus: all is emptiness, the ground is a void, the skies are a void, the heart, the conscience is a void. I want to hold on, but there is nowhere in sight to hang on. Tawfiq Fikret. And a believing soul, giving expression to the chilling nature of the denial of truth and any attempt to conceal it, yet at the same time expressing the peace that faith promises, simply calls out thus: a rusted heart which has no faith is a burden for the breast. Akif. A votary of the heart who is determined to dissolve the corrosion of these rusted hearts, on the other hand, will say, genuine pleasure, enjoyment without pain, happiness with no sorrow is possible only within the sphere of faith and its truths. So, those who want to enjoy the pleasures of life should enliven it with faith, adorn it with the deeds that God has prescribed for humanity, and protect it by avoiding deeds that He has told us not to commit. For, when one manages to direct oneself toward the path of eternal life, however miserable and troublesome one's life may be, as one considers this world to be the waiting lounge for heaven, one accepts everything contentedly and gives thanks. Paraphrased from Bediüzzaman. Such people would enlighten our horizons with their healing words and cause our hearts to feel the magic of faith. With regards to its content and essence, faith is a fruit which has been picked from the realm of life and presented to our souls. It is the heavenly river of Kauthar, from which our hearts have been made to drink, a meaning soaked in by the lips of our hearts, a monument of divine light in our hearts, shaped by the ruler and compass of meaning, feeling, conscience, and understanding. Heroes of faith who repair and restore their hearts and feelings with faith and understanding have already discovered the secret of turning their world of the mind into the heavens. They have entered the route of eternal happiness and have been freed from all other quests. Since there is always the existence of a spiritual heaven in faith and a spiritual hell in blasphemy and sins, then indeed, just as faith carries the spiritual seed of the tree of heaven, so too does blasphemy store the spiritual seed of hell. Paraphrased from Bediüzzaman. In fact, if a soul has taken wing by means of faith, it will not loiter in any other doorway, nor will it stoop so low as to beg from another. A person with such a soul will not bow their head before anyone else. They will act bravely in the face of everything, to the degree of the strength of their faith. Indeed, faith is both light and power. Those who attain true faith can challenge the universe and, in proportion to their faith's strength, be relieved of the pressures of events. This is because faith leads to testifying to God's uniqueness. This testimonial leads to submission. Submission leads to putting oneself in God's hands, and this last leads to happiness here and in the hereafter. Such monuments of faith use their hearts like spiral staircases that lead to the realms beyond the heavens, and with this, they beat their wings in the direction of the angelic heights where angels and spirits meet. At times, the angels and spirits whisper things in the ears of these people, and at times they present the spirits with garlands of comprehension and become people of distinction in that realm. And if such people have been able to deepen their faith with learning and have adorned that learning with spiritual tastes, then indeed it is then that they start to fly to horizons that even angels yearn for. They are always on the lookout for destinations that the Lord would approve of, spending their time with those deserving in heaven, and dreaming of the highest heaven. To be of a value great enough to be lifted to the highest heaven with the light of faith, and to attain a value befitting heaven, is the destiny of those who have faith. To stoop down to the level of dark denial and to become one of the people of hell is the unfortunate end of the blasphemer. The latter is a topic unto itself, but it would take too many pages to make this analysis here. Those who can see people of faith with their particular depths remember God through them. Those who feel their breath find life as if they have been visited by the Messiah, and those who listen to the voices coming from their heart become intoxicated on the wine of the words, as if they have reached the company of the Sultan of eloquence. Indeed, a soul which has completed its garments with faith and what faith promises is no longer in need of anything else. Through being elevated toward God, such a person is still powerful in weakness with the will of God, rich through his wealth in their poverty, and despite being small, is one of greats. This is due to the fact that such people depend on the eternal will of their master when their powers of choosing and will are not sufficient. They trust in his will upon matters which surpass their abilities. When shaken in matters of this life, they take refuge in the orchards and gardens of life eternal. When the anxiety of death envelops their horizon, they throw themselves onto the open climate of eternal life. Faced with matters which they cannot resolve with their intellect and understanding, they resort to the glowing climate of the Quran, which finalizes the solution. They never experience despair, never feel emptiness. They never come face to face with everlasting darkness. Their experiences and lives are like a song of pleasure, and they turn their face toward the Creator with thanks, just like bountiful ears of corn. Perfect people with faith are not dependent solely on their own consistency or personal states. Such people open up to everyone with a prophet-like resolve, embracing everyone and binding their life to the earthly and other worldly happiness of others to such a degree that they will neglect themselves and live like a friend of the prophet, scattering light onto their surroundings with the internal light that is like a candle, and maintaining a route which at times may be contrary to personal benefit. Indeed, such people always look for places that are dark, like the night. They fight with darkness and oppression, always burning. As they burn, they feel the pain inside, and while their heads may be bowed, neither the continuous glow of their flame nor the gradual expiration of the flame prevents such people from enlightening others. Devotees of faith who have managed to raise their flags at the entrance to the way of faith tread the whole world in one bound. They reach the heavens, hold conversations with the stars. They are in contact with the sun. They befriend the moon. And they walk through large stretches of space toward the perfect companion. As they walk, their faces are always looking at the ground in humbleness, and their breath is that of humility. Indeed, it is as if they have donned feathers taken from the wings of angels. They soar at inconceivable heights, but neither the dizziness of such heights nor the fact that they are on par with spiritual ones confuses their thoughts, the purest of the pure. Their heads are always inclined toward their breast with the feelings of Prophet Adam. With a never-ending sigh and hope on their lips, they are like a red rose of the deepest hue. And they glow with varying colors when they turn toward the Just One, as if they are looking toward the sun. When they feel His majesty, they sweat like dew-laden leaves of the morning. It is as if they have heard the sounding of the sur, the fanfare of the judgment day. Those who watch such people find a window through which to gaze upon all clement in all His actions, to turn toward eternity and to transform their worlds into nests of love. They display a variety of lights in the darkest night, in those nights where one awaits the dawn and in gardens swept by autumn. They present bunches of roses and flowers to those around them, gathered from the emotions in their breasts. Such people sometimes shape their feelings with majesty and benevolence. They sometimes cool their scorched breasts with tears. Their tears flow as if to make the path more welcoming to their wishes and expectations, and they experience approaching happiness with the hope and faith that these aspirations will soon come true. They are always ready to go beyond distances in accordance with the vastness of their faith. They keep time with the rhythm of their heart, making wings for their reason with feathers from the wings of their heart. They overcome in one step the seemingly insurmountable obstacles in which reason and earthly comprehension are embroiled, and they reach the apex of the world of meaning. The adherents of truth are always at peace, even when they are surrounded by motifs of grief and sorrow. They do not suffer long from grief, nor are they familiar with unending sorrow. With their bond to God and their intimacy with Him, they are able to break the grip of grief with ease. They smother sorrow in its own sorrowfulness, and if they have troubles, they adorn them with sacred sobriety, and watch the pink hues of the spiritual beauty without distress, binding anguish to pleasure, and pain to the glory that is promised by trouble. They are able to transform the groans of pain to joyful sighs, and even when they are most distressed, they are able to recite poems of happiness to those around them with the language of their hearts. When they capture the essence of this way and thus sanctify their first breath, with their second breath they bind their hearts to their minds, making their intellect speak with the tongue of the heart and making their voices heard even on the remotest stars and beyond, thus making all the spiritual ones listen to these calls to prayer, a song not heard before. Even believers can hear and enjoy them, as long as the believers keep their horizons free from the stain of sin. The horizons of faith. There are two sides to the love of truth. One is constituted by knowledge, while the other is constituted by faith. Indeed, while on one side of the relationship is the discovery and determination of truth, that is, what creates the link between human knowledge and consciousness, on the other side is the attitude adopted in relation to the truth. The former is pursued by the sources of knowledge of religion and by science. The latter is determined by religion itself. Science which does not possess a love or purpose that is intent on analyzing and explaining existence and discovering the truth is blind, and the determinations of such types of scientific endeavor are not free from contradictions. It is always true that any scientific pursuit based on considerations of personal, familial, or social interests will run into some obstacles, and it is unavoidable that any knowledge attained with such a mentality, thought, or doctrine should lead to a very tortuous path. Religion, being a bountiful basin for science with its sources of knowledge, is an essential element, an important dynamic, a guide that has a clear method in matters that go beyond the horizons of knowledge. It is a guide that has a profound benevolence that does not mislead. It is always possible to turn science into a punishing, spectral, and frightening ghoul standing in the way of truth by leaving it at the disposal of a particular thought, a particular happening, or a particular doctrine, and thereby limiting its horizons. It is also possible that religion, which is a celestial truth, can be presented by some as possessing feelings of resentment, hatred, fury, and revenge. What a great contradiction that something can be twisted into appearing as its total opposite. Now try to imagine a science, which in truth should be considered as holy as a temple, that has one way or another linked itself to a particular philosophical current, and has even become subservient to it. This means that science is now a slave to a bigoted thought. It is in no way free, and thus is so cursed as to make the greatest ignorance appear favorable in comparison. And try to imagine a religion which has been sought to be made into a vehicle for the interests of some political or non-political parties. Then the temple becomes the fortress of that party, and the prayers that take place there become some sort of political ritual. In this case, there is no doubt that both religion and the holiness of religion have been sacrificed. Indeed, if in a society some people speak of knowledge and then use the dwelling places of this knowledge as their own villas, as showcases for their desires, fancies, and ideologies, then these abodes for science have long ceased to be temples and have become arenas where desires, ambitions, and hatred are sharpened. Again, if in a society some people speak of piety, and then are able to call those who do not think like them, and who do not share the same political considerations, heathen, atheist, or infidel, then the fault lies with those who have assumed the position of representatives. They have turned religion into a phobia that alienates people from God, which blackens their hearts and closes the doors of hope in their faces. This is an image that is in total contradiction with why religion was sent down in the first place. Just as the enmity toward religion that emanates from the mouths foaming with resentment, hatred, and fury, and from pens which blacken the soul, constitute bigotry, and are gifts presented to the devil, quoting religion and then raising one's fists in the air in protest of a particular view or thought is equally bigotry and ignorance. Such things sadden the inhabitants of the heavens. Whatever a person's appearance may be, to consider someone who does not know what true faith is, who does not know with what the conscience calls, who has not received divine love and affection, and who does not accept things that are petty in God's consideration as being petty, or notable things as being notable, as a pious person, would be to show great disrespect to the celestial and universal nature of religion. The greatest harm we can do to religion and science is to accept our fancies, aspirations, and desires as reasonable thoughts, and to present these as piety. This is a deep, wide cavity in every human being, and the source of this emptiness is their weakness. One of the greatest weaknesses is wishing to seem better than we are, and having expectations above our capabilities. It is this weakness that needs to be cured with certain values which are accepted by the collective conscious as being pious and that pertain to science and religion. In other words, some people want to use religion as if it were something to fill in the cracks of their emptiness. The most powerful weapon of conscience, which is indivisible from justice, against such human weaknesses is the love of truth and the struggle toward knowledge. If there is indeed an elixir which will wipe away the corrosion from the minds of those who appear learned, and the rust from the thoughts of those who seem to be siding with religion, It is undoubtedly the love of God, and the love for all existence, and the love for truth, all due to Him. When hearts are imbued with love and souls are moved into action with affection, all human emptiness and weaknesses are smothered or transformed into an elixir of life. The world came to know and accept the love of truth that leads people to the love of God and brings them into close encounter with existence through the prophets. From the very first day, every prophet has guided people on his way as a Lord of love, and has embroidered his dealings with them with adornments of love. This divine love has melted in its basin, reaching its true value. The Holy Messiah composed a poem out of his life that was based upon love for humanity, and he continued his mission, voicing this feeling in various ways. If we examine how it was expressed through Fuzuli's poetry, the pride of humanity said, "My word is the flag-bearer of the army of lovers," and thus honored the world and continued as the breath and voice of love. When this divine love reached a transcendence, its eye upon transformation, it walked toward the hereafter. When the Quran is read with faith and concentration, apart from being vocally and musically enchanting, it is also seen to be the voice and breath of love, the point of convergence for longing and reunion. The passion for truth, the love of knowledge, the effort for research and serious investigation, and the attempt to get close are issues that are stressed in the Quran, often in order to attract the attention of believing hearts. They are like brilliant quarries where attentive souls discover new gems each time they visit. Each traveler in thought who pursues the Quran attentively will most certainly find themselves in an artery which will take them to one of those brilliant reserves, and who knows what sort of delightful scenes will greet the traveler when they arrive. But quite curiously, its spotless purity has a shadow thrown over it, and doubts are cast in wavering souls, because this book, which is richer than the richest tome in content, this book, which has been created to release us from all our pain and to provide the antidote for ancient wounds, is being misrepresented by deficient souls, people whose passion and love lie in opposing ways. Their search is superficial, and they are skewed in their evaluation. Their investigation is always directed at others whose feelings are eternally linked to ambition and interest, whose intellect and reason block their feelings, whose judgment yields to fancies, and who dart between showcase and vision rather than concerning themselves with inner depth and content. They are partly to blame for the fact that some of those who look on this glory see it with a little less luster. In truth, though they may seem to be on a path that leads to the world beyond and on the valleys of the metaphysical, since material interest has blinded their eyes, they are unable to comprehend or reflect a world that has been shaped by the soul and meaning. Moreover, examining the worlds of others founded upon human weakness, they fall into the trap of arming themselves with the same weapons, of using the same material, and, in other words, of sharing the same things with the people whom they call the others. By so doing, they will, in a matter of days, be imitating the evil they used to reprimand in others, and will follow exactly in their footsteps. To date, no one has ever benefited from such an aimless and purposeless struggle. On the contrary, in a struggle in which all express a multitude of regrets, it is our collective personality that is defeated, and it is we who are damaged. The Quran descended to the earth with a deep understanding of balance. It has balanced the relationship between individuals, families, society, and with all creation, and has heralded to its followers a path that leads to universal harmony. However, we have imprisoned the Quran in the tight confines of our own reason. First, we have limited that great vastness, localizing the universal, and then we have demeaned its love to the base of the commonplace, subjecting its brilliant face to one eclipse after another. People of high ideals, like Sa'id ibn Jubair, Abu Hanifa, Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Imam Serasi, never were party to inflicting oppression. On the contrary, they did not yield 1 inch, always deciding in accordance with the voice of their conscience that is ever open to God. They choose the agony of dark places, may God forgive us, instead of the delight and pleasure of palaces, and they found the true depths by worshipping the All-Wise, and thus they chose freedom of thought and conscience. Indeed, those who live with an aim or die with an aim live on. When they die, their tombs live like hearts, or even like a collective conscience, for eternity. Standing opposite these lofty souls are the unfortunate ones, slaves to their potential interests and thinking of themselves as being so clever that they do not need to concern themselves with anything in this world, yet they remain slaves enchained in their own desires and fancies. Thus their lives are slavery, what they leave behind is cursed, and what they attain is disaster upon disaster. Faithful students of the Quran, you can call them people of ideal, are the riders of eternity, who take up others onto their saddles, carrying them to eternity. They are able to transcend their own ardor, aspirations, and passions. As students of the Quran ride toward the horizon, idealized according to their inner world of contemplation, they gallop over many things that others call reality, while some who have long suffered from their ideals and have even lost these ideals think them to be fools. In truth, purpose and aim are like catapults which hurl us into the midst of the realm of souls, a metaphysical atmosphere beyond this world, surrounded by matter which blocks our way and holds us to our feelings, interest, gain, and reputation. Everyone who is placed within that catapult one way or another, if not today, then one day, will go into orbit around the sphere of God. While they are waiting, they are like a satellite waiting on the launch pad. Religion, in its entirety, is a bountiful source which feeds this ideal, and the prophet is the affectionate attendant of this source, the sincere representative and commentator who provides the most comprehensible explanations that are in keeping with its celestial origins. In that respect, he is an innovator, a revealer, a revolutionary who recommends the best, the excellent, and the most human interpretation for those who come after him, and the one who is open to the most distant future with the principles that he preaches. Those who cannot see the Quran with their own inner depth, and those who do not accept the person of the Prophet as the most skillful navigator of the depths of the Quran, are unfortunates who have drowned in their own depths, if indeed we can call this a depth. They are sometimes shaken and stopped in their tracks by the echo of their own shallowness as reflected in the Quran. They sometimes seek refuge in historical murmurs, voicing their own emptiness. In their interpretation and representation, religion, more precisely Islamic theology, is either a monstrosity which has been riddled with fairy tales, or a non-contemporary system which has been defeated by time and which is vainly still trying to struggle against it. In fact, the Quran is a source which has an enigma so deep and a purity so vast, a source with such richness that all those who address it can see that it is beyond the horizon of the sphere of their understanding, and they can experience the security of having such a source. Then, with the discovery of their own horizon of understanding, they watch like a rainbow, a triumphal arc that is always just beyond the point that the follower has reached. Piety is such a transcending interpretation of the source of light that pours into life through a chrysolite prism, molding and shaping it, that those who feel it witness an inimitable ease of flawless expression, even though they can see their level of understanding always expressed in the Quran. The Horizons of the Soul. Metaphysical Thought. The modern Western worldview is said to be founded almost entirely on materialistic notions that exclude or even deny the spiritual or metaphysical dimensions of existence. This is a controversial point, but many so-called Muslim intellectuals who blindly imitate and import what they see as Western despise and reject their society's traditional modes of thinking and living. This is largely because they no longer have any awareness of the spiritual dimension of existence and life. Indeed, those who reduce existence to matter and think only in physical terms can hardly perceive and understand what is metaphysical and spiritual. Moreover, since those who can only imitate are more radical in their borrowed attitudes than the originators, and since imitation often obscures reality, Those so-called intellectuals become more radical in rejecting what is spiritual and metaphysical, and lack adequate knowledge of matter and what is material. Since the spiritual, metaphysical dimension requires us to go beyond our sensations and instincts into deep and vast horizons, materialists neither understand nor like it. In other words, they restrict their thinking only to what they can perceive and experience, deceiving themselves and others that existence consists only of the material dimension. They present themselves as true intellectuals. Despite their claims and the assertions of their Western counterparts, it is difficult to accept that Western scientific thought, although primarily materialistic, has always been separate from spirituality and metaphysics. Modern Western civilization is based on the trinity of Greek thought, Roman law, and Christianity. This latter, at least theoretically, contributes a spiritual dimension. The West never completely discarded Platonist thinking, although it failed to reconcile it with positivistic and rationalistic philosophy. It also does not pretend that such thinkers as Pascal and J. Jeans never existed, or exclude Bergson's intuitivism. Bergson, Eddington, J. Jeans, Pascal, Bernhard Bavnik, and Heisenberg are just as important in Western thought as Comte, Darwin, Moleschott, Cholba, and Lamarck. Indeed, it is hard to find an atheist scientist and philosopher before the mid-19th century. In contrast, metaphysical thought and spirituality have been almost entirely discarded by many Muslim intellectuals. In the name of certain notions that have been reduced to such simplistic slogans as enlightenment, westernization, civilization, modernity, and progress, metaphysical thought and spiritual life have been denigrated and degraded. Such slogans have also been used to batter traditional Islamic values. We use the horizon of hope to mean traveling beyond the visible dimension of existence, and considering existence as an interrelated whole in the absence of which things and events cannot be perceived as they really are. Nor can its essence and relation with the Creator, as well as the relation between Him and humanity, be grasped. Scientific disciplines that conduct their own discourse largely in isolation from one another, and the prevailing materialistic nature of science that has compartmentalized existence and life, cannot discover the reality of things, existence, or life. When such investigations are seen in medicine, for example, people are viewed as being composed of many discrete mechanisms. The consequences are easy to see. Existence is stripped of its meaning and connectedness, and is presented as discrete elements consisting only of matter. However, the only way to fully comprehend and value life and existence is to experience existence through the prism of spirit and metaphysical thinking. Neglecting to do so means forcing reason to comment on things beyond its reach, and imprisoning intellectual effort within the confines of sense impressions. But when we heed the sound of our conscience or inner world, we perceive that the mind is never content or satisfied with mere sense impressions. All the great, enduring, and inclusive modes of thinking developed upon the foundations of metaphysics and spirituality. The whole ancient world was founded and shaped by such sacred texts as the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, and the Upanishads. Denying or forgetting such anti-materialistic Western thinkers, scientists, and philosophers as Kant, Descartes, Pascal, Hegel, and Leibniz means ignoring an essential strand of Western thought. We can only imagine a new, better world based on knowledge or science if we look at the concept of science through the prism of metaphysics. Muslims have not yet developed a concept of science in its true meaning, namely, one derived from the Quran and Islamic traditions primarily shaped by the Quran and the Hadiths. The application of science or technology by an irresponsible, selfish minority has engendered more disasters than good. If Muslims want to end their long humiliation and help establish a new, happy world, at least on par with the West, they must replace old-fashioned positivistic and materialistic theories with their own thoughts and inspirations. Aware of their past pains and troubles, they must exert great efforts to define these problems and cure them. A true concept of science will join spirituality and metaphysics with a comprehensive, inclusive view that affirms the intrinsic and unbreakable relation between any scientific discipline and existence as a whole. Only a concept embracing the whole in its wholeness can be called truly scientific. Seeing existence as discrete elements and trying to reach the whole from these will end up getting swamped in multiplicity. By contrast, embracing the whole and then studying its parts in the light of the whole allows us to reach sound conclusions about the reality of existence. Spirituality and metaphysics also provide art with their widest dimensions. In fact, art only attains its real identity through spirituality and metaphysics. An artist discovers the inner world of humanity with all its feelings, excitement, expectations, frustration, and ambitions, and discovers how it relates to the outer dimension of existence. The artist then presents these in forms suitable to the medium being used. Art expresses our inner essence, which is in continuous movement to return to its source. In other words, artists unite the inspirations flowing into their spirit from things and events from all corners of existence. Bringing together all noumena and phenomena, they then present things to us in their wholeness. Remember that the most important source of science, thinking, and art, even virtues and morality, is metaphysics. All of existence can be perceived with a sound mode of thinking based on pure metaphysics. This allows us to view all of existence as a whole and to travel through its deeper dimensions. Without spirituality and metaphysics, we cannot build a community on sound foundations. Such communities are forced to beg continuously from others. Communities that lack sound metaphysical concepts suffer identity crises. To build a new, happy world wherein human virtues and values are given due prominence and are effective in shaping policies and aspirations, all people, regardless of religion, must rediscover and reaffirm the spirituality and metaphysics taught in the God-revealed religions. Chaos and the metaphysical world of faith. Today, everyone breathes resentment, swallows hatred, curses all that is deemed to be an enemy with a fixed and determined passion, as if programmed for fury. The ink that flows on the pages of newspapers, the pictures that are broadcasted over the television, the electromagnetic waves that resonate on the radio scratch our ears like ill-omened screams, emitting from a variety of places. In the mountains or on the water, in the valleys or up in the hills, they strike our eyes like photographs that make us shudder, and they open wounds in our hearts. These epics of hate that we hear of day and night, and that startle us, all these ill-omened screams, make us sick at heart, and yet the people who seek a cure for these ills are few indeed. Their thoughts go in different directions, but they always seem to arrive at the same point: money, financial prosperity, and success. Emotions base, desire consuming, the meaning that flows over from the gaze is full of contempt for the subject of God. Akif. Very few are exempt from such a turbulent point of view. No difference remains between what is collective and what is not, between capitalism and communism, and no difference remains between these and liberalism. The distance in nature between those who attach their lives to the considerations of eating and drinking, resting and earning money, having a good time in general, and other beings who are obliged due to the unchanging character of their nature, becomes smaller day by day. The basic differences between the two sides vanish into thin air one by one, and humanity seeks new directions despite its own nature. Religion, piety, morals, free thought, our own perceptions of art are thought little of. Power has become so ulcerated as to be unrecognizable. Fantasy has taken on the image of ideas, and these disagreeable ideas are being forced upon others. Indeed, I have to say that I have a hard time understanding the inner drama of such a terrible fanaticism. Nowadays, when enlightenment has become widespread, when intellectualism is at its apex, the fact that science and ignorance should meet at the same spot, contrary to the distance that one would expect to exist between them, suggests a dark complicity and makes the existence of a serious problem obvious. Such a contradiction gives us the impression that the emotional will of some people is miles ahead of their intellectual and logical will. I believe that in such a dark period, when opposites have become intertwined, when in different sections of society chaos is heaped upon chaos, when dark acts of different origins have darkened the face of the earth, when what is underground reigns over what is above, when polemics and dialectics have become so popular with so many, when hearsay, especially through the use of media, is welcomed as acceptable merchandise, when the lives of others has begun to be the sustenance of our existence, when the soul of unity has been shaken and different groups are scattered everywhere, when hopes are shattered and wills are paralyzed, when souls give up the fight against desire, there is a burning need to turn toward our own spiritual sphere and listen to our own inner world, to tear ourselves from the dark atmosphere of the bodily realm and sail into the magical atmosphere of a hearty and spiritual life. Those who do not fall into lethargy and return to themselves as soon as possible will feel the magic and charm of their own inner world. The unfortunate who fail to return and remain in between, or who remain on the other side, continue to resent, hate, slander, lie, and feel contempt. They continue in the dissolution and obstinate disagreement which they have practiced until this day, and even in climates where the sun continues to shine, they will dream of dark things, they will mutter dark thoughts, always seeking dark places in which to hide, and dark corners in which to live. One hopes that they would be able to feel the joy of the blessed days and nights that we experience, when showers of light reach everywhere. One hopes they too would abandon the heresy, atheism, dissension, and sedition in their hearts, and that they would be able to respect the chosen understanding and stance of every single soul. Maybe one day these wishes will be fulfilled. But the self-proclaimed enemies of God, the prophets, religion, and piety, once having breathed nothing but materialism, having gone into a frenzy denying divinity, and having plunged into the quicksand of anarchy and nihilism, will never be able to breathe this reviving air. Oh, dear Lord, had you only made yourself known to them and released the chains from their hearts. In every community and society, there are people who are inclined to abandon their faith, and there have been many times when such people have spun out of control. Other communities and societies do not have such powerful places to seek refuge when faced by these abysses and weaknesses as we have. Indeed, they have thoughts which soothe, beliefs which reconcile, days and nights which tremble with joy, festivals and carnivals. But these days, these nights, these festivals, these carnivals, are devoid of any holiness. They are like fireworks, shining for a moment, and then they are gone, giving only instantaneous pleasure. They are ephemeral and physical, not promising anything in the way of spiritual joy. Indeed, in their worlds you cannot feel the greatness of faith to God, nor can you feel that souls are free from the boundaries of time and space. Everything starts with a false and transitory happiness, and takes place in a delirium of flesh. All is then transformed into painful memories, regrettable dreams, and disappointed hopes, and finally, everything simply disappears. In this spiritual atmosphere, where we are closely bound to God, every sound, every word, every action is felt like a nursery rhyme and listened to like a melody. These shower down upon us like the rain. We soak up the bounties of these showers. The moon changes its form every night, as if signaling particular times and happy hours. The sun moves to a new spot on the horizon at every dawn, awakening our feelings and thoughts in a new period of time, causing our dreams to follow it, presenting memories to us that resemble the river Qatar, promised to us in heaven. The past becomes like a veil of many colors draped before our eyes. The happy future is the apex of our dreams, waiting for us with open arms, and we, who have been freed from the narrow confines of time, live the multiplicity of yesterday, today, tomorrow, simultaneously, and, like the angels, feel all the joys of surpassing time. It is impossible for those who are not fed from the same source as we, those who do not share the same feelings and thoughts as us, to feel and understand the holy depths in which we lose ourselves, or the happiness and joy that we sip like the rivers of paradise. Our faith, our horizons of thought, and our manner, characteristics of the fortunate, but at the same time belonging to a little wronged nation of this part of the world, have become, through being formed and reformed in the mold of the collective personality, greatly refined and adorned with universal values. This is a situation that exists in no other community. This is so much so that those who spend time with us need not stay long to be aware of this difference. The truth is that in these differences, the holy sadness of our hearts and the enthusiasm of our souls, like water running between the rocks, is felt and heard. Indeed, those who listen to what we have to say always hear the melodies of the pain of separation voiced along with hope. They hear the notes of reunion, of the sweet and eternal search for home in our intonation and manner. Indeed, while on the one hand we murmur, "O cup-bearer, I have burnt in the flames of love, give me a cup of water," on the other we say, "I have dipped my finger in and tasted the honey of love. Give me a cup of water." And thus we are able to turn our grief into smiles. Our tongues speak sometimes of love and sometimes of weariness. Though love and weariness cause pain to others, in them we always hear, like Rumi, the poem of longing for the realm that we have left to come here. Love and weariness to us are like a plea from the tongue of the soul, stemming from a sorrowful desire for eternity. Since our beliefs and feelings take us to the magical worlds of beyond, we almost always feel sadness and joy intertwined. We hear the sounds of crying and laughing as different notes of the same melody. We respond to the troubled heaving of our breasts with smiles on our faces, as our eyes overflow with tears. Our conscience takes upon a red hue with the roses of the Aram gardens. Even though it may not be easy for every individual, our connection to God is the most natural attitude that we can adopt. Our relation with Him is like a spell that transforms all the moments of our life into enthusiasm and joy. Our hearts that beat with feelings toward Him fill and refill with the dream of this gaze. We are able to live through the bitterest autumns in our hearts because we have the joy of spring. Our souls adopt the most enviable attitudes with instincts of particular feelings and joy that are the result of our connection with the All-Glorious One. Thus transformed, they make us feel a refreshed enthusiasm, a new opening and revelation, even at moments when we are filled with sadness and grief. Pleasure or sadness, revelation or sorrow, all these emotions undergo metamorphoses in our hearts that beat with faith and speak to us of the most natural pleasures and the most realistic expectations. It is a fact that we, too, experience interconnected moments of ease and hardship, sweet weeks and bitter days, light and darkness which come and pass, like day and night. However, we sip the unsurpassable benevolence and joys from the hands of all these tribulations, because we have our beliefs, our connection to the Just One, and our hopes. Those who do not recognize the trials and pleasures to be the product of the same will writhe in never-ending agony, while in our own atmosphere we see clearly that everything will be transformed into deep compassion. Taste a whole life, with its bitter and sweet facets like qatar, in everything that we eat and drink, at every place that we inhabit, with all the beautifully divine discoveries of our own inner world, with all of their different wavelengths. Feel our sorrows shrink in the face of happiness, feel our pain melt away in pleasure, and feel how our lives flow into glazed cisterns in a spectrum of colors. Our mortality is transformed into eternity. We exude smiles even when we cry. In our world, the beliefs and the expectations that emerge from the heart of those beliefs are so intertwined with our lives that each chapter of our lives lends us the wings of the station of prayer and takes us to the gate of the hereafter. It takes us there and lets our hearts drink of the beauties of heaven. In this way, we feel as if we are inhaling the scents of heaven. Even if we should let ourselves be swept along by our daily lives, the calls for prayer, songs that exalt God, the various sounds of prayer, the recitation of the names of God, those who give Him thanks, calling out His uniqueness, letting this spill from the windows of the mosques, all draw us to their climate. They paint our souls with their hues. They give a timbre-like voice to our hearts. They make them sigh like a flute and excite them with the happiness of music. These sounds excite our souls, and we are charmed by the mysteries pertaining to God. The charm of these mysteries which comes galloping from the depths of our inner world, and which spreads to all our senses. This charm which tints the gardens of heaven in our thoughts, and which flows past our lips like cascades of inspiration. Thus charmed, we stand awestruck. This charm, this recognition of the mysteries pertaining to God, reaches a higher level on the blessed days and nights when limitless abundance and bounty are showered upon us. This is true to such an extent that everything around us ascends in a state of joy, every corner takes on a spiritual hue, and the excitement of our souls, aiming at metaphysical destinations, reaches its apex, or in Sufi terms, our souls reach the highest heaven of maturity. To the degree that we can hear and listen to what is all around us, we too rejoice like children who feel as if they are in the fairgrounds of joy. Thus we experience the happiness and joy of a feast day. In such a world, the dawn flows into our houses from the doors and windows like an awaited guest. The evening comes into our private chambers like a lover and sits by us. The night clings to us with its associations of reunion with the confidant. And in every valley, hands are raised up toward Him in prayer, ready to receive the gifts that will come from Him. Assuming a state of metaphysical tension with the power of the soul, sighing, saying, "Hold my hand, dear confidant, hold it, for I cannot do without you." In such a world, the prayer roars like the booming voices of Gulbank hymns, and echo like the voice and breath of the divine depths. The warm solitude of the night envelops our souls like silk. Our pulses beat with the excitement of one who has received good tidings. Perhaps some of us keep singing His praises, come rain or shine, like the nightingale that breaks its heart in an effort to express the ideal rhythm for its emotions with the most touching of sounds. In a word, every one is humming a melody with never-ending agony and joy, never-fading love and excitement, listening to the shivering of their souls and letting others hear it too. Everyone sighs with the fever of love and makes other people feel it too. Yes, as they reflect on the excitement in their souls and the inspiration of their hearts, expressing themselves one last time. They become the mouthpiece for the feelings shared by all, and they are able to speak of the hidden meanings that they want to speak of but fail to verbalize. The horizon of living yesterday, day, tomorrow at the same time with such a degree of faith and hope, of love and recognition of the mysteries that pertain to God, gives us such a depth of life that each heart in the orbit of the hereafter finds itself wrapped up in the melodious harmony of emotions and ideas and is freed from the limiting, stifling effects of matter. I believe that the strongest basis of all human relations, the purest source of all pleasures, and the fountain of all love, longing, attraction, and gravity is this faith and hope. Every disciple of the heart who attains this faith and hope can experience and feel the state of being outside of time, with the ability to sense all of its depths. Indeed, to the extent that one can attain this view, one can feel existence in a different manner, evaluate things in a different way, and melt in on oneself with the color, taste, aroma, and accent of manifestations from the eternal. These attributes pervade everything, and people can reach a second existence with a new birth after death. During such joyful hours, when the internal gaze is focused on that which is behind the visual scene of existence, one feels all the joys of being. One feels as if one has taken a shower in wisdom, as if one is freed from the weight of all things that are alien to one. The distant heavens shower blessings down upon these hearts, hearts thirsty for love and galloping with longing and affection. All hearts that live in fear of drying up are quenched. Celestial flowers flourish in these showers adorned with dreams. Some of us may not be able to comprehend the state, a state which becomes a succession of struggle to overcome the darkness with all its connotation and dawn, of these people of faith and horizon. But all these are phenomena of the heart, soul, and emotions. Living through the countless revelations of life, no one but the active heroes of the dawn and of the great strife can understand this love, enthusiasm, poetry, and music, poured into our souls by the Eternal One. Those who do not understand this will not be able to understand us either. Those who remain distant to this fine and delicate life live in the darkness of this distance, while the comprehension of those who have found a position from where they can view the truth in such a way that it appears as obvious as it really always is, feel this gift in all its wavelengths, sip it like the rivers of paradise, and live their earthly lives as if in heaven. Who knows how many more times we will speak of this never-ending pleasure and joy, in the delight of a festival, of a feast day. However many more times we may speak of it, the faults of the speaker's mode of expression aside, we will still listen with pleasure and try to share it with others. The horizons of tranquility. People have always dreamed of attaining peace of mind since the day the first foot was set on the earth. People have longed for peace of mind, pursuing and struggling in a multitude of ways to obtain it. Sometimes people have connected tranquility to working hard and earning financial wealth. Sometimes they have tied it to living to their heart's content and to boundless freedom. At other times, peace of mind has been seen as being in the possession of advanced technological means and the achievement of physical comfort, or at times it has been connected to eating and drinking and the satisfaction of carnal desires. People have bound their lives up in the attainment and possession of these means. On this misty, dusty road, people have sometimes lived in hope, have sometimes experienced disappointment and writhed in despair. But never have they reached the longed-for expectation. It is impossible via these routes, as the peace of mind that they are in pursuit of is the fruit of virtue within faith, and can only be attained through perfect faith. This has also been the essence of the call of the prophets. The essence of this call for peace and peace of mind can be instituted when individuals turn toward God and submit themselves to Him with all of their being. It is impossible for a person of faith who has achieved submission to this degree to continuously be a slave to bodily desires, nor is it possible for such a person to fear anything but God or feel any anxiety. For now, just as these people have found the one that they have been searching for, and as they find the beloved toward whom they have directed their love, they also find themselves at peace, for they have been sheltered in the refuge of eternal omnipotence, in front of whose majesty they will always feel awe and respect. They are at peace, for they know that the endless omnipotence and grace never abandons those who have turned their faces toward Him, whoever they may be, and He never lets them wallow in misery. For this reason, people of faith are always at peace and always feel secure. They know that they will reach the desired destination if they continue walking, associating everything with Him. They will be safe all along the way and will, in the distance, experience the wedding night of being in close proximity. They will walk toward the purpose of existence with the guidance of the Quran, with the trust that the faith in their heart promises, with the breezes of submission wafting through their emotions and conscience, and with the supervision of the Divine Master. With all of these, they can overcome all the hellish pits of corporeal attachments and the insatiable appetites of their desires and fancies. Indeed, those who enter the atmosphere of the Quran and who take refuge in His guidance always feel a deep contentment and an unshakable trust in their hearts when they breathe of safety. As they listen to their conscience, as they gaze upon objects, as they contemplate the tomorrows of both the near and far future, that is, the future stretching until eternity, as they take into consideration the Barzah, the place where the souls will wait till Judgment Day, Mahshar, the place where all the dead and living will meet on Judgment Day, Sirat, the very narrow bridge which leads to heaven. Hell and heaven, they carry a remarkable awareness of their duty and a feeling of responsibility, and they are also filled with a deep feeling of hope. This feeling of hope is directly proportional to the depth of the faith in their breasts. They gaze upon objects through such a specific window of benevolence, given unto them as befits the breadth of their faith, that should the curtain of physical existence be completely drawn back, they will find the things that they see and the experiences beyond that window akin to the things that they feel and experience here. Due to the nature of earthly confinement, they will come face to face with what they have felt briefly on the earth beyond this window in fine detail, and they will smile at their good fortune. Indeed, faith is the magical key to happiness in this world and the hereafter, and promises a virtuous end to those who pass their lives under its banner. Faith promises a bright time of Barzah, giving glad tidings of a gentle and warm resurrection, whispering an octave of the divine scale that is pleasant to our souls, making our hearts feel our approaching adventure on the Sirat bridge with its depths of hope and poise. Heaven opens its doors with content and comprehension, with surprises that exceed all expectations, and presents us with blessings from the tree of heaven, blessings that make us forget even the most trouble-laden and painful moments of this life. In fact, when people of faith turn toward God with all their being, everything else disappears from sight. All false powers and desires deflate like pricked balloons. All physical lights which have occasionally dazzled their eyes with their false glitter are attenuated in the face of His divine light that shines into our hearts. All around we hear resounding, "Today all wealth and possessions belong to God, the absolute victor." A heart which has attained this level is free from the deceptive promises of all seductive powers, forces, kindness, and grace, and turns only toward God and awaits help only from Him. When such people are in trouble or shaken by difficulties, they trust in and lean on Him. They seek protection against all threats, taking refuge in the sanctuary of His grace, benevolence, and help. When such people weaken, they enter the advice of His transcending power. When they are tainted by sin, they run to His basin of forgiveness to cleanse themselves, dispersing the fog and smoke that has occasionally enveloped their horizon by putting faith in Him and submitting themselves to Him. Thus, they walk toward the future without submitting to any phenomena that may appear in their way. They solve all their individual, familial, and social problems by connecting with Him, and they never fear or feel a loneliness that cannot be overcome in their souls. At times, they may be subjected to temporary loneliness in public, but thanks to their faith and submission, they always feel the breeze of divine companionship. Whatever befalls them, they take it as a warning sign from fate and welcome such transactions with assent and patience. Their faith in God and the characteristics of their faith open up the possibility of acquainting themselves with everything, and thus they see all existence, living or not, as a family. They make contact with the rest of creation, taking an active part in the life of things, and in their conscience they feel the vastness of the title of vicegerent which has been bequeathed to them. They perceive that all things have been created for their benefit, and they bow in gratitude, realizing that they are hand in hand with the perception of angels and the souls of the universe. They find the ground that they walk upon, the lowland and the heath, as warm as ancestral residences, and they feel as at home there as if they were in their mother's cradle. They evaluate existence in a way that in no way resembles materialist and naturalist depictions, but with the eye of a person of faith who associates everything with God, and in response, they receive recognition from all that is around them. They receive messages of confidence from all the things which they come into contact and respond with an attitude expressing the same confidence. They are not afraid of anyone and do not cause anyone to fear. They embrace all as their brethren. They shower smiles upon all things. They sip water, breathe air, and accept all manners of presents as blessings from God. They inhale the scent of the earth and those that it gives birth to as if it were the sweetest of aromas. They salute the orchards and gardens, the mountains and valleys, the grasses and trees, the roses and flowers with the language of their heart, as if these things too had senses. They caress all creatures that they encounter as if they were friends assigned to keep them company in this guest house. With every action, they demonstrate that they have been sent to the earth as a sign for agreement and reconciliation. Thus, people of faith who, with this vast faith of theirs, see everyone and everything through this framework, feel themselves to be in an expansive atmosphere of peace, so much so that it would make all other people jealous if they were but aware. These people are overjoyed with the inexpressible pleasures of living with faith. Indeed, there are no fights, no disputes. They expend all their energy on making other people feel what they feel and enjoy. On sharing these sincere feelings with everyone, they strive to lead everyone to this song of joy by uncovering the horizons of others to whatever degree they can. They are always a few steps behind ordinary living because of their efforts to cause other people to experience these joys. In all of their acts, they have eternal trust in God. They take care never to posit themselves deliberately against other people. Indeed, on the one hand, they feed their own relative power with the omnipotence of God. On the other, they also try to attain the support of other people of faith who are like them. They transform all powers that may stand against them into a new depth of their capabilities, thus walking toward their goal as if they were flying. They walk toward the goal of reaching peace with faith, the goal of making other people believe, and toward the achievement of God's pleasure. If truth be told, a society where individuals have reached such a state of satisfaction, where they love and respect one another, and where they are connected with a bond of the heart, is a society that is the perfect candidate for peace. It is the perfect candidate because of the factors that may lead its members to unease, and the creation of factions have totally disappeared. Among these people, there are no considerations or privileges of nobility, ancestry, region, or status. These people, who see all people and all things as stemming from the same root, are brethren in the fullest meaning of the word. The Quran calls attention to this deep truth when it says, "The people of faith are only brethren to one another." Al-Hujurat 49:10. This is not just a physical kinship, in the words of the Prophet. They are strongly bound to each other by love, affection, and sincerity, like organs of the same body. And they always feel the pain of others in their hearts, and suffer the agony, share their joys, and experience the same happiness together. Indeed, they are like each other's eyes and ears, tongue and lips, hands and feet. In this society, every individual has devoted themselves to facilitate another's life, to do all that they can for the happiness of others. Consequently, there is no abandonment or wallowing in despair among such people. When one is hurt, all the others feel this pain in their hearts. All join in the feast of happiness when one partakes of it. Again, in this society, parents are respected like saints. Children are raised with diligent care, as if they were flowers. Spouses, even when they have grown gray together, treat each other with the joy of their first day, with contemplation of the eternal togetherness in the hereafter. They try to live their lives following a route of the heart and mind, beyond the limits of emotional relationships. They are true to each other to the degree that no stranger's shadow is ever reflected in their eyes. This harmony in the family is also true for the nation, which is considered to be a larger family. In a nation composed of such families, all will love and respect one another, all will regard each other with affection, all will wish well for others, and all will try to extinguish evil to the best of their ability. No one thinks bad thoughts about anyone, and no one holds another in suspicion. No one uses people as spies against one another. One section of society does not devote its existence to the destruction of another. No one at all, engages in acts like complicity, mendacity, deceit, and slander. These are the habits of the lowest sort of people. In this society of peace, each individual is at battle with all that is negative. It is as if they have sworn to protect human values. As a result, this society becomes a society of conscience and peace. Sufism and its origins. Sufism is the path followed by Sufis to reach the truth, God. While this term usually expresses the theoretical or philosophical aspect of this search, the physical or practical aspect is usually referred to as being a dervish. What is Sufism? Sufism has been defined in many ways. Some see it as God's annihilating the individual's ego, will, and self-centeredness, and then reviving him or her spiritually with the lights of his essence. Such a transformation results in God's directing the individual's will in accordance with his will. Others view it as a continuous striving to cleanse oneself of all that is bad or evil in order to acquire virtue. Junaid al-Baghdadi died 910. A famous Sufi master, defines Sufism as a method of recollecting self-annihilation in God and permanence or subsistence with God. Chablis summarizes it as always being together with God or in His presence, so that no worldly or otherworldly aim will even be entertained. Abu Muhammad Jarir describes it as resisting the temptations of the carnal self and bad qualities, and acquiring laudable moral qualities. There are some who describe Sufism as seeing behind the outer or surface appearance of things and events and interpreting whatever happens in the world in relation to God. This means that people regard every act of God as a window through which they can see Him, live their lives as a continuous effort to view or see Him with a profound spiritual seeing that is indescribable in physical terms, and with a profound awareness of being continually overseen by Him. All of these definitions can be summarized as follows. Sufism is the path followed by individuals who, having been able to free themselves from human vices and weaknesses in order to acquire angelic qualities and conduct pleasing to God, live in accordance with the requirements of God's knowledge and love, and experience the resulting spiritual delight that ensues. Sufism is based on observing even the most trivial rules of the Sharia in order to penetrate their inner meaning. An initiate or traveler on the path, salik, never separates the outer observance of the Sharia from its inner dimension, and therefore observes all of the requirements of both the outer and the inner dimensions of Islam. Through such observance, this person travels toward the goal in utmost humility and submission. Sufism, being a demanding path that leads to knowledge of God, has no room for negligence or frivolity. It requires the initiate to strive continuously, like a honeybee flying from the hive to flowers and from flowers to the hive, to acquire this knowledge. The initiate should purify his or her heart from all other attachments, resist all carnal inclinations, desires, and appetites, and live in a manner reflecting the knowledge with which God has revived and illuminated the heart, always ready to receive divine blessing and inspiration, as well as in strict observance of the Prophet Muhammad's example. Convinced that attachment and adherence to God is the greatest merit and honor, the initiate should renounce his or her own desires for the demands of God, the truth. Sufism requires the strict observance of all religious obligations, an austere lifestyle, and the renunciation of carnal desires. Through this method of spiritual self-discipline, the individual's heart is purified and his or her senses and faculties are employed in the way of God, which means that the traveler can now begin to live on a spiritual level. Sufism also enables individuals, through the constant worship of God, to deepen their awareness of themselves as devotees of God. Through the renunciation of this transient material world, as well as the desires and emotions it engenders, they awaken to the reality of the other world, which is turned toward God's divine beautiful names. Sufism allows individuals to develop the moral dimension of their existence and enables the acquisition of a strong, heartfelt, and personally experienced conviction of the articles of faith that before they had only accepted superficially. Sufism as a lifestyle. Sufism is the spiritual life of Islam. Those who represent Islam according to the way of the Prophet and his companions have never stepped outside this line. The tariqah is an institution that reaches the essence of religion within the framework of Sufism and by gaining God's approval, thus enabling people to achieve happiness both in this world and in the next. As a lifestyle, Sufism was practiced at the most sublime level during the Age of Happiness, the time of the Prophet and the 4 caliphs. Upon them be peace and blessings. Later, this teaching was systemized according to the individual character, spiritual makeup, and understanding of men whom we can call tariqah dignitaries. This is a completely normal occurrence. Now, if I had the ability to read people's minds, that is, if I had the ability to know everyone with their particular characteristics, I would direct each person to the hill of perfection that is the most appropriate for them. I would recommend continuous reflection, contemplation, and reading. I would tell them to study the signs of God in the universe and in people themselves. I would advise people to busy themselves with the study of the Quran. I would advise others to recite a portion of the Quran and certain prayers on a regular basis. I would tell still others to continuously reflect on natural phenomena. That is, I would, in a sense, designate duties to people in the areas in which they have natural abilities. What the Sufi masters actually do is not any different from this. According to the character, general nature, and makeup of people, the Sufi masters assign them religious responsibilities in accordance with their spiritual capacities and enable these people to evolve spiritually according to their capabilities. The Sufi masters aim to take people to the horizon of perfection, which is the purpose of the creation of humanity.